Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. What's your names? Tana?
Amy.
Tana and Amy, and you're here for Long Story Short, going
We are.
solo. Have you been to these before?
You sure have.
You have, and so this is just like a tradition. Every quarter or so you come by, and
Yeah. We do.
And then it's the first time you walk in here, like, why is this guy having a yard sale in the middle of 3S Art Space? And he has all this stuff, and I coaxed you into doing this, so
Yes.
I better be good, right? This
Ideally.
is you chose Walt Disney's Alice in Wonderland. This is a golden book, and
Yep.
you were torn between this and the Poky Little Puppy.
It's true.
And I feel like a lot of libraries, like at home, kids' libraries and stuff, had like just a whole line of these golden spines.
Absolutely.
And I almost, in a way, wonder, and maybe we can even just talk about this, if, notice they don't have the title on the spine.
No.
Do you think that was on purpose, or is that just like a cost-saving thing?
Oh, it's totally on purpose.
Why do you think that they would do that?
Because it was about amassing a lot of them, and then when you see a lot of them together, I think that said more than the words could say.
Right, and it shows off kind of like a status kind of thing.
Exactly.
Plus, it requires that the child or whoever wants to look at it has to pull out every single one.
To find out
And
what
then-
it is. Yeah.
And these things are pretty manageable. And on the back, I always like how they have pretty much like it's an all-star game of every single character a kid would be familiar with.
Yes.
So we have Walt Disney's Alice in Wonderland meets the White Rabbit. So this is like one part of the overall story, but that I think works well with what ideas or behavior does it convey. What is it about this Alice in Wonderland story, which, if I'm not mistaken, comes from like the turn of the century? Why do you think that Walt Disney Company wanted to make that into a feature film? What was it about, the ideas that come from that story of a girl who just goes from like one misstep after another and ends up in this like... Why do you think that... that was something that the Disney company said, yeah, that's our story. We're going to make that into a movie.
I don't know.
That's a very good question.
It is a good question.
I feel like a lot of older Disney stuff had a lot to do with imagination, and certainly Alice in Wonderland is a story that you really have to roll with your imagination to be able to believe any of it, and so it sort of pushes that in some ways, I would say, and allowed them to do some great things with animation too. I think.
And the original story came out right around the same time as The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And there seems to be some similarities between Alice and Dorothy.
Totally.
Yeah. And, the kind of, and like you said, like walking, talking, playing cards.
Right.
A bunny that is always late for something, the Mad Hatter, all that stuff is so wild and fantastic.
Yeah.
It almost has to mean something else, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Do you think that Disney maybe wanted the Wizard of Oz and missed his chance, and maybe it was like, this is, all right, we'll do the English one?
Maybe. Yeah, I also think that, they're both about enduring things and being able to go through something and face challenges and be on a journey. So, I don't know, the similarities there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it as a child, but as an adult, it's just way different. It's chaotic and fun as a child.
It's one of those kinds of things when
Kind of
it's
traumatic
like,
as an adult.
It is. I remember being kind of, especially the Disney one, a little unsure about certain stuff and like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And, it goes with like that wildness of it. But it's also maybe even an opportunity to, Lewis Carroll, separating the artist from the art kind of conversation, when you learn a little bit more about what he was up to when he wrote the story and the real Alice and stuff like that, you're like, oh, Walt Disney, what were you doing with, borrowing that story? It's kind of weird. But, this one is just one segment of the story. And so that could be just from a business point of view of, well, you got to get a whole movie in book form. And so you got to buy all these. And these things are super cheap. I'm sure it was like $1.
Yes.
But... and you could piece together the whole movie eventually. And, so she meets the White Rabbit, but they still show the Cheshire Cat back there and some of the other cards. So, I think, behavior and idea-wise, there's a lot conveyed in this one little part, right? As far as like, hey, we can get more eyes on this kind of thing. Where do you think this would be sold most often?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
I still see them at the grocery store.
I was going to say,
True. Pharmacy.
Yep.
Yes.
And places where the kid
yes, would
is like
looking around while the parent is shopping.
Or it's also like being kind of a pain.
Yes.
And like, here's a book,
about
and I don't mind buying this.
And it's cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
and
I don't,
accessible.
it will,
yeah.
And it's a book. It's reading. It's better than than doing anything else. So it's just that simple. That's all we do here. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy the main show.
Thank you so much.
And if you want to talk some more later, I'll be here. So
Thank you.
Thank you again. John, so you're going to talk about the Poky little puppy a little bit? You can talk to the microphone. You can actually sit if you want. So which question was it that gave it away for you? What was the clue that told you it was a Poky little puppy?
It was when you said little puppies, I was like, oh. My mom gave that to me when I was
Well, a lot of people guessed the 101 Dalmatians, which is a similar time period, and that involves a lot of puppies as well. Why do you think there were so many puppy and dog stories going on in the 1940s? What do you think the deal was with that?
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe because so many people were getting into dogs.
Yeah, that was right around the time period that people discovered that dogs existed and that they could have them in their house, right?
I'm not so sure about that.
I'm just kidding. Well, think about in both stories. So with the Poky little puppy, it takes place in the countryside, right? So you're rural, lots of farmland, rolling hills. 101 Dalmatians, where does that start?
Kind of in the city, but then when they travel around, they get into kind of country area.
Yeah. And there's another book from that same time period from the 40s that comes to mind. Remember the one about the little house? It's a little house in the countryside, and then the city is far away, but then it creeps closer and closer and closer.
Because of the construction.
Yeah, it doesn't make cities look like a very good place, does it?
Not real.
So in all those, you have the same thing going on, where it's kind of celebrating rural life and making city life not look so good.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? What do you think about what does that tell you about the 1940s?
I think they were trying to tell you that city wasn't a good place, maybe. The country is the better place. Then The city, of course, because in 101 Dalmatians, he got robbed in the city.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. Did it? Rough.
Yeah.
That's good. And so they are not happy in the city. They have to flee the city and they go to the country. And the Poky little puppy. What does the word Poky mean? I know it's not Pokemon.
Kind of like nosing around, going where the nose tells it, like my dog Elsa.
Yeah, you say, hey, slow poke. Right? It's just kind of, and the Poky little puppy, eventually he gets his comeuppance, right? Like his brothers keep getting in trouble for the stuff he's doing. And the reason why he doesn't get in trouble is because mom doesn't see him doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But eventually he gets in trouble. So I know it's not really a country versus city type thing, but do you see any other similarities there?
I guess during 101 Dalmatians, one of the puppies gets in trouble because it was staying up and looking at the TV too long, and he blamed his brother. Like, that wasn't me, that was him, but it was obviously him because the father saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess another thing they have in common is having lots of puppies around.
Yeah, pretty much.
And which kind of setting is more favorable for that to happen?
I guess the Poky little puppy or something.
But like countryside, right?
Yeah, countryside.
Dogs and cats and stuff tend to do better out in
Yeah.
farms. You don't have, and when it comes to human children, it's once again kind of driving the point home of like the benefits of the country
Yeah.
versus the dangers of the city.
I also think about it, I kind of think of Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, that's another one too.
That's stays. And actually in 101 Dalmatians there's so many Easter eggs that refer to Lady and the Tramp, like the dogs and the pet shop getting ready to get sold from the pound and stuff.
And thinking about also with Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians, and even
Yeah.
Poky Little Puppy, the artist was a Disney artist.
Yeah.
So Disney seems to have their hand in a lot of these same kind of stories.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a coincidence to you.
Not really.
So we can literally read into this. And I thank you for your 5-minute chat. That was great. Good job. Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything as a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.